So there has been quite some times, and since I last did a video that wasn't about drawings or for Patreon, so I thought that right now I had kind of like a good excuse to do one because there's kind of like a small, it's not a big controversy, but it's like a small controversy with an anime, and I thought that is kind of a good opportunity to go into a topic that the topic has been talked about a lot, but maybe not with this angle. And it's the topic of politics in stories and how we use there's a lot of discussion about how in the West they basically don't know how to do politics and they inject. There's a lot of talk of gender ideology or a lot of other like propaganda and series and movies that are basically preaching to the audience and things like that. There's a lot of talk about how uh, anime does kind of politics better, and like then the other side says, "Oh, but look at all of these Japanese games and all of these anime that has politics," which is kind of missing the point because the point is that like the thing is not that we do not want politics in stories, is that politics don't have to be like proselytistic, like don't have to be like very obviously someone picking a microphone and using the characters to make a monologue in which they attack a part of the audience, which is probably the core audience of your show in many cases. And that's kind of a problem and how anime does it better. But this argument has been done like a lot of times. And I want to use this recent controversy to use a different angle, which is the angle of using an anime that does it badly to exemplify what we mean using an anime itself. So the controversy is kind of this anime is called I'm in love with the Villainess, and kind of a summary of the anime. I have been reading the manga for some years, and it's basically one of these isekai otome games that in which a girl dies and she goes to another world. This is the beginning of the show, so it's not really a spoiler. She dies, she goes to the world of an otome game that she has played fucking tons she knows by memory, and she's in love with the villainess character of the show. So the first thing she does when she appears in this world is declare openly her love for the character, and the villain is like, "We're both women and I hate you." So this kind of is that like this comedy Yuri story, and basically the protagonist trying for the villainess to become a lesbian because she's not a lesbian, and it's kind of like that. And she basically sexually harasses the villainess in every episode, and that's kind of the joke of the show. And recently, there's like episode 3 came out, and there is a scene that it's kind of very cringy, and a lot of people has talked about it. And there has been a lot of confusion about it because, people saying, "Oh, I don't want like LGBT propaganda in this show," and then the other side goes, "Wait, this is an Yuri anime. Obviously, it has gay things, but the issue is not." This is where the misunderstanding comes, and I think many times it's intentional. They understand what we are talking about, but for the people that maybe do not know what we are talking about, the issue is not like there is a gay character in my gay show. It's like obviously we are watching the show because it's Yuri. But the problem is the delivery of all of this. So I'm going to go in kind of like the scene is that the characters are sitting at a table, and suddenly one of the characters just goes, "So are you what they call gay?" And there's a lot of memes with this image because precisely it comes absolutely out of nowhere. So the issue is that this is not a conversation that comes organically. They are not talking about something that somehow leads to them talking about her being gay, or something happens in the story that makes relevant that the character is gay. It's just they are in a table talking about fucking whatever in that world. I think they were talking about chess, about the game of chess, and they suddenly is like, "Oh, you are gay," and then the protagonist goes into a rant about homosexuality, and it's like and the characters start to have interactions that are not natural and are actually kind of stupid considering how the story goes. And that feels a lot of preachy, and it's very obvious that It's just a part that the author decided to use the characters as a megaphone for whatever she wanted to say. Like, for example, how the conversation goes is that, and this is to explain how the situation is stupid, and it makes very obvious that it's just preaching and bad writing. The protagonist is talking about, yeah, I'm gay, whatever. And the villainess goes like, she acts kind of like she's in fear for her personal integrity or the integrity of her body. And then the other characters go like, wait, but that's like homophobic, or that's prejudice, because just because the protagonist is lesbian, that or someone is gay, that doesn't mean that they are going to like everyone of their own gender. So it's a prejudice to believe that, oh, this person is gay, so she must want to do some sexual things to me. So that's kind of the argument they're trying to go. And if this conversation was in a completely different context, in a completely different series, it would make sense because it's true. Like, a gay person is someone who likes the same gender. They don't want to be horny for every single person ever. But the thing is that in this series, from the very beginning of the series, like the main character has declared her love for the villainess a lot of times, and she continuously sexually harasses the villainess. She tries to touch her body and do a lot of things, and she would love to see the character becoming gay too, and she has gone to the bed she has been into the bed of the villainess, things like that. So it's kind of an anime that goes a lot of hard in the sexual harassment jokes. So it makes absolutely no sense that the characters will say that the villainess has prejudice for thinking that the protagonist is going to do exactly what she has been doing the entire series. So we have 3 episodes of the protagonist just sexually harassing the villainess, but then suddenly if the villainess is like worried that the protagonist is going to sexually harass her, then the villainess has prejudice. Why? This is exactly what happens all the time in this series. So it doesn't make any sense. It's just it doesn't match up with what is happening in the context, in the series, in the scene, in anything. It's just a dialogue that the author wanted to throw it there, and she didn't know how to do it. So the only way that she conceived to do it is just, let's gonna make this character just say, oh, you are gay, and then throw this dialogue about how you are prejudiced because you think that she's going to sexually harass you, which is true. So it doesn't make any sense. It's very obvious that it's preaching, and you see it, and it takes you completely away from the series. And there's a couple of parts in which the series does this. There's this other thing. This is it's not much of a spoiler because it's just like a dialogue between 2 characters. I'm not going to say when this happens to avoid spoilers, but it's basically the protagonist finds a group of nuns, and the nuns are kind of against homosexuality, which kind of makes sense considering that they are nuns. And they start to have like a dialogue in which you see this is only a page, but it's several pages, and it's not really a dialogue. It's just the protagonist goes in a rant in which the religious girl is so as like a stupid, intolerant religious person, and the protagonist is like, it's like the meme of there is a thing that in comics we call the I am silly, which is that the you use a character that you want to say the thing that you believe, and the character is like very calm and rationally speaking, and then the other side is like angry and saying stupid things. No, like it's like the meme of I already portrayed you as the Soyak. Like one of the side is like calm and rational, and the other side is like the Soyak, angry Soyak, and whatever. So this is basically this part, and it's very cringe because you're looking at it and it's like, yeah, I agree that like homosexuality is not something that should be like attacked or whatever. But reading this is like super cringe because it's clearly just the author completely stopping the series in these tracks and just introducing a microphone to say stuff. And the thing is that people notice these things. Like people see a series and then they see a work of entertainment that they are watching just because they want cool fights or because they want to see a love story or whatever, and then suddenly there's pause, and we do this part with the characters just preaching and injecting a political side like fire, like they don't have nuance. It's not like we have several positions, several characters having opinions, and they are like every character is just a character, and all of the opinions are equally measured. No, it's like this is the opinion that the work wants to push. So all of the characters that say this opinion, like all of the protagonists are all have the same opinion. I can remember time ago I saw like on one of the new X-Men comics, and there was like the group of the X-Men went to a place and something happened, and there was one character in the a civilian that said something about a complex topic. I don't remember exactly what it was. That's why I'm not saying it. But basically, some topic that was hot at the time in reality, in the real world, in our real world, that was a hot topic. So the character said something with an opinion about that, and all of the other characters in the X-Men were like all exactly the same opinion, and all of them bashing the guy as if he's an idiot for having that opinion. And I was like, wait, this is a group of like 30 people. All of them have the exact same opinion with no variation and absolutely no nuance at all. Absolutely none of them. So it's stupid. All of the characters have the pre-approved opinion that the author wants to push, and they pause the works to do these monologues that are very, very stupid. So I have another example, but I want to first show an example of when anime does it right, which is almost all of the time because anime does these things very well. But I want to use this example because it's recent, because it's something that I saw recently, and I recorded the video and uploaded it to the internet as an example. And basically, it's a scene in the anime Frieren, Frieren, I think it's Frieren, Beyond the Journey's End. It's a very good anime that is right now in emission, and I highly recommend it. And basically, this thing is that it's a thing about religion. And first of all, I want to say that I'm not a religious person at all. I don't know if I will say that I am an atheist or an agnostic, but I really not religious. I say this because one of the defenses of the counters that people try to make when we argue about the politics in stories is usually people say, oh, you only want the politics that you agree with. You only support this because you agree with these politics. No, I'm not a religious person, so I'm not saying this because I agree with the opinions about religion of any of the characters in this show. I'm saying it because this thing is basically four characters arguing, having like an argument about religion. But the way that it is done is first super organic and is super fair. They feel like characters having real opinions. So the scene starts with like this, like they go into the town of the dwarf, and they see like the tombs, the tombstones, and the priest is like praying. So the dwarf is like, what are you doing? Like, I'm praying for the souls of these people that are in heaven. No, but the dwarf is like, no, there's nothing beyond death. Like, they just go into nothing. And the characters start to have like a back and forth in which each one of the four characters have a different opinion according to their personalities about if there is a heaven, if it matters if there is a heaven, and things like that. And the end of the discussion, there is really not a conclusion. There is not like this opinion of this one character is the one that is right and the others are not right. It's like you notice that all of the characters still have the same opinion, but they respect each other, and they are kind of like, yeah, I respect that you think that, even if I'm not sure or I don't think that. That's kind of how this thing goes, and it's very refreshing to see this after you see something from the West, because if this thing was done in the West, it will be like the religious person will be like stupid because they are always presented as stupid. The perspective that the story will push will be that like the atheist perspective, like there is no God and whatever. And it's like, yeah, I personally agree that there is no Christian God, but it's like I really don't care, like, especially if I watch in fiction. Like I don't care absolutely nothing of watching a fiction in which there is God, and I see Morgan Freeman as God, and it's like, okay, it's Morgan Freeman as God, so that's God tier. I don't care that I do not believe in God, and I think that most people is kind of like that. If you present things in like a fair way, in a nuanced way, they won't care that you are showing like uh, I highly dislike communists, but if you have a story in which there's two characters, one is a communist, one is a capitalist, and they have a discussion, and both have good points, and there's like no conclusion at the end, and it's just what the story needs to go forward. It's like I'm okay with it. I'm not going to rage because there's one character that is a communist or whatever. And another anime that does it very well is this anime, which I consider personally that is the best anime ever made, is the Legend of the Galactic Heroes. It's not an anime that I will recommend to everyone because it's very dense. It's very high on politics, very high on philosophy. It's not an anime that you will watch when you are a teenager and you will probably not like it. You will get bored. It has also like 300 episodes, so we are into One Piece territory here. But for me, this anime is like absolute top tier on storytelling. And the way that it represents, like, all of the characters have their own politics and their own philosophy and their own ideas, and all of them have their chance to speak about those ideas. If you look, I'm not gonna tell you to watch 300 episodes, but if you watch in YouTube, if you look for, there are scenes about the show that are very good and they are on YouTube. And the characters have like their opinions and their philosophies. There is no push to say this one is the correct one and this one is the erroneous one. Like, unless there is a character that is like openly evil and kills people for fun, you're not going to find that the series tries to tell you, yeah, this idea is bad. And just so you see how much the series pushes this idea forward, my favorite scene of the show is probably when the two protagonists find each other, and one of them is at that point it changes a lot in which position is each character in the story, but along the story. But at this point, one of them is kind of like the symbol of freedom and democracy, and the other one is like the symbol of authoritarianism, and he's a leader of uh, a country that is kind of authoritarianism. At that country, up until very recently, has been basically like Nazi Germany. They are basically fascist, and they sit in a table and they start to have a discussion about which is better, democracy or authoritarianism. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing authoritarianism correctly, but I don't care. I'm Spanish. Uh, and they have this discussion, and I personally, I'm like super in favor of freedom. Like, I will identify a lot with the character that is a Democrat. I agree with his ideas the most in this show. But you see the discussion, and it's like the author managed to have a discussion between a guy that is the leader of a basically Nazi country and a freedom fighter, and both of them are like in equal grounds. Like, both of them have like good arguments. Like, for example, the guy who's in favor of freedom talks about, like, freedom is obviously better than being uh, you know ordered by the government or by one person that is a dictator of the time. And then the other guy says, okay, but uh, our country maybe was kind of like fascist before, but I have changed all of that, and because I am the only one in power, I have been able to change this country from being a fascist state into a state that has a lot of good things, because I just eliminated all of the bureaucracy and the bad. Like, I've just gone and say, we're going to do this, and this that is going to improve the life of society. We're going to put these rights, and there's like no waiting time because I just say it and it's done. And then, I just bring experts in doing things, and I tell them how do we do this, and then we do it. So basically, the life in his country has improved tenfold in like a few years. And he says, okay, this, like, we have done all of these things precisely because I have eliminated all of the things that were in the middle that were stopping society from improving. And then the other guy says like, okay, that I admit that this is true, that you have done all of that, but what happens when you die and the next person that comes in like, is not as good as you and is a dictator and has absolute power, and then everything goes to shit. And they have a back and forth with all of these ideas, and it's a very, very good scene that I would recommend to see. And I think that's kind of what we mean. Like you have, if you're going to talk about politics, it has to be in a way that doesn't pick a side of real life politics, because also this is politics of this world. Like the anime is not saying like the right wing party in the real world in the United States is this, and presenting all of right wingers who follow Trump or whatever are evil, and or the people who follow Obama are evil. That they are not saying that in anime, but in the West it happens. Like they do like these comparisons with the real life, and then they say all of the people who think these are evil and the people who think these are the good people. So anime tends to not do that. Anime tends to like just do internal politics of the world that they are representing, and like the political parties or whatever are fictional, the groups are fictional, and everything that happens is fictional. So even if you see something, it's not like a direct reference to something that happens in the real world. And usually if they do politics, they are like nuanced. The groups are not represented in a way that it strongly pushes one politics from real life. The characters feel like characters with their own opinions. Even if they talk about these things, it's usually in an organic way, like the discussion arises in a normal way that makes sense for the scene. It's not like, as I say, what happens here, like characters suddenly saying, "Oh, you are gay," and then the protagonist throws a monologue that makes absolutely no sense, and just make obvious that the author wanted to say, "Yeah, don't discriminate this," or Trump bad, or whatever. And it's like it's not that I have to disagree with the things that are being said, but I do not want to watch a shonen battle anime in which suddenly in the middle you are talking about Donald Trump, and I don't want to watch a romance story in which in the middle you are throwing like a monologue about activism and things like that. That's not like the thing I want to watch. And I had another example of a show that does it badly. I don't remember the name right now because I stopped watching the show, and I stopped watching it because of this. Maybe someone knows the name. It's a show that was about a guy that got a part-time job with a guy that was like an appraiser of jewels and things like that. And the thing about this anime, what took me completely off of the anime, is that it had a lot of things that were very, very clearly just virtue signal by the author. And there were things like, for example, so at the beginning of the first episode, like the guy starts working in that place, and the boss, which is the other protagonist and like the cool guy, says, "So the one thing that we do not accept is to discriminate people for like their sex, gender, or religion, race, or whatever." And it's like, okay. But then in every chapter, like something happened that made this guy admonish admonish the protagonist, the part-time worker, and it never made sense. Like the one episode, for example, was there is this guy from Arabia that apparently came. I think I remember that the guy came directly from the airport to that place, to the jewel shop, and he went with all of the clothes, the typical Arab clothes, like full clothes, in I think it's in summer in Japan. And the protagonist comes in, sees this, the Arab guy goes away, and the protagonist says, "Well, isn't he hot with all of those clothes?" Which is, I mean, do you think that this comment is like a racist comment or whatever? It's like, the Arab guy has like a lot of clothes on top of him, then the other side, isn't he hot? Which a completely normal comment, I think. I think that any person in the world would say this is a completely normal comment. The jewel shop guy says, "I remind you that I told you that we do not accept any kind of discrimination and prejudice in this establishment." And I was like, "What? What was that? What?" And there's a lot of things like that. Like there's another episode with a lesbian woman, and it's a girl that I think, I don't remember exactly, but I think it was like a woman who was pretending not to be gay, to not be found out or something. And the protagonist, when he knows all of the story, says, "Oh, she has like a hard time. She's gonna have a hard time in the future because of this." Again, completely normal comment to say, like a woman is pretending that she is not gay because that might cause trouble with her family or her job or whatever. And the other guy says, "Yeah, she's have a hard time ahead." And again, the other guy says, "I remind you that you can be prejudiced in this establishment." Like, why? Doesn't make sense. So it's like things that were introduced with no sense in the context of the series, just because the author wanted to build a signal about something and throw that. So that kinds of things that you see them and completely take you away from a story. And I think that that's what people is angry about. And I think that most people do not express this very well, especially because this is a thing that I notice with a lot of topics. When there is a topic that has been discussed a lot of time, a lot of people assume that everyone knows, and probably everyone knows in most cases, but because they have talked about this a lot of times, they don't feel like they need to explain things. So you sometimes see some of the tweets about this show that I have seen are people saying things like that, like I don't want LGBT propaganda in my gay show. And then obviously there may be a person who comes and see this and doesn't know about all of the context of why the person is saying this. So what this person is referencing is exactly what I have said, that they are not they want to see a romance story between two girls, and they don't have any issue with two girls having a romance story. So they are not homophobes, but they do not want the show to suddenly start like stopping the show in these tracks and do preaching about something that doesn't even make sense in the context of the show. But then someone might come in and say, wait, is this person complaining that there are gay people in a Yuri anime? But it's not that. It's that people are just making comments probably for their own followers, and their own followers and friends are probably people who understand what are they talking about. It's like one of the reasons that I don't like when people pick WhatsApp screenshots and put them out of context is because many times people say things that they say them because they know that the people inside that WhatsApp conversation or that Discord conversation and people who understand all of the context of why they are saying something or why they understand the joke that they're making. So if you take that out of the context, it may look very bad, but in truth, they are not saying anything evil, or they are saying something that makes sense for the people they are talking to. So I think that's kind of like the issue a lot of times. Like people make comments for their friends or the people that follow them who know what they are talking about, but then maybe a person sees that is not into that context and is like, what the fuck is happening here? I also think that there is a lot of people who totally knows what we are talking about. We everything they have said in this video, they know it, but they want to pretend that they do not know it because that way they can virtue signal. They can see if they still pretending that what people are angry is about gays in a gay show or about politics in any kind of politics in a video game or things like that, they can still pretend that this is the case, and they can virtue signal, and they can continue to say stupid stuff like, "Oh, Metal Gear has politics," and ha ha ha, and things like that. That makes absolutely no sense when you know what we are talking about. Like, no one cares that Metal Gear has politics. What people care is those politics are well done, which I personally think that they don't. I'm being kind of a heretic here, but I don't like how Kojima writes, and I kind of find many of Metal Gear's cringe in that regard. But I know that I'm kind of an outlier here. So that's kind of what I wanted to mention. I just wanted to use this different perspective for maybe the people who really are honest in that they do not understand why people say that we don't want politics or gender identity stuff in anime or in entertainment. And using these anime examples, you understand that the issues are basically the writing, that the writing is very bad and it feels like preaching, it feels like proselytism. The characters don't feel like characters, they feel like just tools for the author to say whatever they wanted to say, and they do not feel real people. And when you see things like this thing, it kind of feel like that. When I was reading the manga, I was like, this is like out of nowhere. It takes me out of the story, and it has nothing to do with. I mean, like I support gay people. I have absolutely no problem with gay people. It's not that. It's that why the fuck is this here written in this way that makes no sense and looks bad. So that's basically it. I don't know when I will do a drawing video or whatever because I many times forget to even record the drawings. uh, but you can watch a lot of my drawing videos in my Patreon. That is Patreon/Cucurullo, and my DeviantArt all has my same name, my Twitter, Facebook, and whatever. So until next time.